Hey everybody, this is Corporal Speculation on my very first video. Just to get started, a little bit about myself because this is the first one. I won't be doing this every time, but I am a Marine Corps combat veteran and a libertarian and a father. And a lot of times I am a political outsider, and I feel like I bring perspective that I don't really see elsewhere. And so I thought I would make a video and put it up and see if people liked it, and maybe make a YouTube thing work. So we'll see. Probably not. Probably just me monologuing to myself. But, if that's the case, I can check back on this in 10 years and, laugh at, how much grayer I am at that point. Because, man, does life come at you fast. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the government shutdown. We are obviously rolling into a month mark of the government being shut down, which is pretty crazy. I mean, I remember, when the government shutdown happened under Obama and how crazy that was. Luckily, I'm blessed to be in a position where, my income doesn't come from the federal government. I'm in the private sector now, so, I'll be okay, but obviously I do. My heart goes out to those who are suffering, and with that, I just want to talk about a couple of key points with it. Starting with the Republicans, it seems like there's something going on here. I think I feel something moving under the water. It kind of reminds me of a chess match, where they started with a clean resolution, and then they suspended Congress, or Mike Johnson sent everybody home. So they can't do any kind of compromise to give Democrats an out. It feels like maybe if they gave them 10% of the funding that they were asking for the subsidies, maybe they could grab a few more Democrats. But it doesn't really seem to be any effort to do so. And starting with a clean resolution does kind of paint the Democrats as the ones who are kind of responsible here. So it's definitely an interesting move. My gut says that there are big plans revolving around the shutdown, and that we're just in kind of a weird spot where they're going to really start to look to lay off a lot of the federal government, which I do think is a good thing. I mean, at the end of the day, I think this country was founded on, sort of libertarian ethics, like if you look at George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, James Monroe, these guys that did the Bill of Rights and all that. I mean, this isn't the government that they wanted. They wanted a much smaller government, so if we are pivoting back to that, I would be happy. I don't know that that's what the case is, but I definitely think that there are some big layoffs, something, there's a Leviathan moving under the surface, and I can sense it, It really seems like they lured the Democrats into this, and they've been pretty good about targeting structures in the Democratic Party and bringing them down. I'm thinking about the redistricting that's really worked out in the Republicans' favor, and then also I'm thinking about the Section 8 or Section 2 of the Civil Rights Act, and possibly giving Republicans a permanent majority in Congress. Definitely the Trump administration is coming in and they know what they're doing. So as an outsider, just kind of watching it, it really is kind of interesting to see. And I think the Democrats are in a pretty tough spot, and there's just not a lot of room for compromise. So I guess what I want to focus on is kind of what comes next, because you don't see a lot of talk on it, but this is it's a new position that we're in as a country. I mean, really, this can go both ways. If a Democrat gets elected, the Republicans could do the exact same thing, if we're going to keep the filibuster the way it is. I honestly think the filibuster probably doesn't survive this, which is scary. Really, minority rights are important, and they should be important to everybody. I know Republicans right now are screaming that the Democrats got rid of it first, and that, Republicans or Democrats probably feel like the Republicans aren't honoring their minority rights at all, but instead of being mad at each other, maybe, meet in the middle and say, maybe we could bring back some of these minority rights, and maybe that's a thing that we could push for as an American citizen, and get back to a place where there are some minority rights, because, we are a republic and everybody should be represented in some way, right? So it's just tough, kind of seeing what happens. I think a lot of people are really focused right now on the EBT situation, which, Lord knows, they say the veneer of civilization is 3 meals away from being wiped away, and that may be possible. I mean, that might be the road that we're on. I got a lot of sympathy, for people on EBT. I know it's popular to bash them. I like SNAP as a program, even as a libertarian. I think that, if you have to pick your favorite social programs, voucher systems are good. They don't distort the free market in the way that maybe student loans and health insurance being mandated by employers as legislation have. And that's something that we should look at. We should look at the social programs that we do have and what works well. In my opinion, food stamps is one that really does work super well. For pennies in our budget, we've eradicated hunger in our country. That being said, though, if you are somebody who's on food stamps and you're looking down the barrel of a gun right now, I would say, it's not that tough. You take this as a warning. It's likely to happen again. If you're a federal employee, same thing. It's likely to happen again. Get out there. Get on ChatGPT. Find out what the in-demand jobs are. You get an associate's degree online from a community college, and a Pell Grant's going to cover that entire thing. It's really not that tough of a thing to do. Get a job that's in demand. Really think about it, and you'll crush it. You'll get out there and you'll smash it. You'll get a job making $65K. And you won't have to be in this position ever again, So, if you're really worried about it, if you're an EBT American, as they say, why not get out there and try and do something, especially you get to be my age, a 2-year degree, 2 years goes by in a flash. I'm 36, and I'm telling you, it goes so quick, and you start next semester, you'll be done in 2 years, 3 years from then, you'll be well established in your new career, probably making $70,000-$80,000 a year, and you're okay. You know what I'm saying? You're okay, and that's what I would want for you. Get out there and try and get off it. I'm not judging you. I get it. You know what I'm saying? The government's there, and that's how you're making your income. But I made my income from companies before that weren't great. The executive structures made terrible mistakes. And then there were layoffs, thankfully I never got laid off. But, that's the thing that you deal with is, you got to deal with the executives of the organization that's cutting the checks that you're feeding your kids with. And, if that organization is the federal government, just judging on the last couple of months, years, decades, a century, I'd caution against it. Unless you're in the military, military can be great. If you're a little bit younger and you've got that option to get out there and join the military, get out there, get a trade, man. Get something useful, even if it's plumbing, so you can do your own plumbing once you get out there. GI Bill's fantastic. So like I said, a lot of sympathy to the people in the federal government that are impacted. A lot of people sympathy even to the EBT people who are impacted. But I would say take this as a warning call, and then, get your life together. It's not that tough. It's a little tedious, but, you're competing with an 18-year-old kid that's only in community college because his parents said he had to, and he's doing okay. You would do much better if you had a succinct plan. I want to get an associate's degree in business administration, as an example. But look, talk to ChatGPT, figure out where the big careers are, where you can get a cert in 6 months, a year, or an associate's degree in 2 years, and then really turn your life around. It's not that tough. I'm telling you, it's not an intellectual lift, especially if you're an adult and you've got a good succinct plan, But yeah, overall with the shutdown, like I said, it's a completely unique position, and I'm not really sure where we go from here. It's tough to imagine that the Republicans don't just lay off everybody in the federal government that they don't like, and then nuke the filibuster and then jam through whatever budget they want to jam through. But I think, the larger issue is that, we have to look at what happened to America, and what happened to America was, these world wars, World War I and World War II, and then the Cold War, and we completely remade our country to not be a small liberty-based republic and into this sort of, quasi corporate state thing, it's really tough what happened. And we do eventually have to get away from that. I mean, the budget is out of control. The interest rate is more than the military budget at this point. Inflation is out of control, and I know they tell you it's corporate greed, but I'm telling you, inflation comes from money printing. And the government can only get money three ways: they can print money, they can borrow money, or they can tax. And I think the population is just about taxed as much as it's gonna be, and it be sustainable. We can't print anymore, or we can, but there's going to be inflation to go with that. And it's getting to a point where we can't borrow anymore. So we really do have to start thinking about, what does the United States look like post all this craziness, all this massive budget? How can we have our cake and eat it too? How can we design better systems? And I honestly, like I said, it's ironic. This is my first video, so I'm just talking about what's in the news right now, but it's, the EBT is a good system. It really is. The Pell Grant is another one. It's a voucher system, and it really doesn't distort the free market in the same way that some of these other programs do. You want that normal relationship between consumer and merchant, and that's really the only way to control costs. And when you start getting away from that and getting these overly complex systems, like student loans, like the employer mandate for health insurance, both came out of the Great Society and Lyndon Baines Johnson, by the way. You're going to start seeing outrageous inflation, and that's why these other programs are so expensive. But if we get away from that and try and figure out a way back to the norm, there's no reason we can't have a really good country again. And that's what I want. I think that's what all Americans want. We just got to figure out how to get there. So I'm just putting this out there into the world. And like I said, hi me in 10 years if that's the only one who ever ends up listening to this. But hopefully you guys like it. And, if so, feel free to leave some comments underneath. If you are in a situation that's tough and you want some advice from somebody that was poor and was a federal government employee at one point, only the Marine Corps, but still, and how to kind of escape that world, hit me up and we could chat about it. I mean, I'm not a super genius, but, I'll give you my 2 cents. And, if you absolutely hate me, then, let me know that too. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks so much, guys. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day. If you like this, go ahead and throw me a like and a subscribe, and maybe I can turn this into a channel. Thanks, guys.